As you can imagine, I spend a lot of my time in and around DIY shops, and every now and again I come across products that seem too good to be true. Just like this week when I came across this product from No More Nows called Click and Fix, and it's a plastic container that when you push it down dispenses a dollop of glue that's then supposed to stick nearly anything to anything else, like bookshelves onto a wall or plant pots onto brickwork or even a moose head into your living room. And just to be clear, I'm not being sponsored by these people, which is a bit of luck because I'm not convinced it's going to work nearly as successfully as the instructions would have you believe. This is the start of a series of videos where I take things that I'm not convinced about to test them out to see if they work. That series is called Does It Work? It was going to be called Does It Actually Work, but the board's not long enough. So this Click and Fix dispenser dispenses 20 blobs of 1.5 grams of glue. That's what it says on the back, approximately. And it says it can be used indoors and out. So I'm assuming that the glue part of this is the same as No More Nows waterproof glue, which can be used indoors and out, which I've not ever really used. The reason that I picked it up is what it sort of promises and infers on this picture on the back, which I showed you at the beginning. And that is that you can stick things like planters to brick walls with absolutely no problems. And a whole host of other items around the home, which I would normally use a mechanical fixing for. But maybe I'm old-fashioned and I just like that mechanical attachment rather than relying on something that could eventually go brittle and just fall apart. For instance, it says that you can put up shelves with this glue, and also things like picture frames, coat hangers, and even lights on the ceiling, which isn't something that I'd ever think about fixing with glue. So what I've done is I've bought a selection of items similar to these here to test out. I bought a number of items like mirrors and coat hooks and floating shelves so I can test out this glue. Before that, let me take this out and I'll show you how this clicky thing works. So there's the dispenser, and I'm feeling at this stage that this is a little bit of a gimmick. The first thing that strikes me is how light it is. If this was all full of glue, this would be a lot heavier. So there's not that much glue in it. It doesn't feel like to me. There's a little dial here that tells you how many squirts you've got left, and then a cap on the bottom that if we remove, and that exposes where the glue is going to come out. And at the moment there's a bit of silver foil keeping it nice and fresh, which we can just take off, exposing where the glue is going to come out. And every time this red piece of the applicator gets pushed against a handle, a certain dose or blob of glue is going to get pushed out the end there. The thing that I did find in the instructions, which is in the really small print, and it's not really highlighted in any of the photos or the way of fixing, is it does say for heavy items and strange shape items you may need to support them while the glue goes off, which makes sense, but it's not highlighted and it doesn't seem to suggest you need to do that, because the glue, although it's instant grab, if you've got something heavy, it's going to gradually slip down the wall, isn't it? So that makes sense that you support it while the glue is going off for maybe 12 or 24 hours. So that's, for the heavier items, that's what I'm going to do. Right, let's stop the talking. I'm going to try some of these things out and see how successful this is at sticking them to things. So I'm going to start with plastic on brick. Just as the instruction said, I've got this sort of plastic wall container. The only problem is it's got ribs at the back, so it's not flat. So I'm going to have to somehow put enough glue on so those ribs get in contact with the brick. I've picked a brick here that's sort of protruding out a little bit, so I've got half a chance of some sort of contact. The instructions actually showed the person putting the glue on the brick rather than on the planter. So I think I'm going to follow that, see how it goes. Is that it? Is that enough? I don't know really. Actually, I think I'll put one in the middle. Then that might just hit that other rib. Okay. That's all I can afford at the moment because you only get 20 goes. So, let's see. Okay. So there it is propped up. I can see the glue a little bit. I don't really want it protruding out, so maybe just smooth it off a little bit. I'm going to leave that for 24, 48 hours. Let's try the other ones. So for the rest of the items, I'm going to trial this No More Nails click and fix with. I found a wall that I don't mind getting some glue and some damage to up here in my bathroom that's halfway through renovation, and this is all going to get covered, so I don't mind damaging it. Now this is standard plasterboard, 12.5mm with 2 or 3mm of finished plaster and then just emulsion. So this represents a pretty standard UK wall, and I've got about 5 things to stick to it. The first one being a mirror. That seems to work surprisingly well, although the only thing I did think it was going to click when I pushed down, not when I let off. It seems to be grabbing immediately. I haven't got a spirit level with me. I'll just match it up with something in the background. But that grabbed quite nicely, and it says that it's got a couple of minutes of working time. This little indicator says I've got 12 squirts left, so I don't know if I've got enough to do what I want on this one. I think this deserves 3. Instant grab for sure. You can actually see it coming through the screw hole there. But I don't think I need to use any masking tape or anything. That's fixed quite nicely. So next up is the sort of thing that you might use in a bathroom for toothbrushes or whatever, just a plastic box. And that would normally be connected to probably tiles. So I've got a nice tile here to try it on. It's got a slight texture to it, but mainly flat. So let's give this one a go. And I think I'm only going to put 2 on this one, because once again, I'm down to 8 already, so it doesn't go very far. Once again, that's grabbed pretty well actually. I'm quite surprised. Leave that and see how it dries. So the next thing I've got here is a set of floating shelves. And these are obviously MDF, and they've actually got some hangers at the back. So the best thing I can do is maybe 4 blobs of glue, one on each corner. Let's see how they fix to the wall. I'm not convinced this is going to work. I mean, how long am I supposed to stand here and wait for it to get some sort of set? The glue is sort of spewing out and it's starting to drop as well. It's slipping down really slowly. Whoops. Okay. That needs some help, I suppose. Slightly damaged now. Okay, it's probably not level, but that's not the point of what we're looking at today. The last thing I'm going to fix is a picture frame, and just like the floating shelf, the only thing I've got to fix really is this perimeter, which means it's going to squidge out, you're going to see it a little bit. And the second thing about fixing a picture frame like this is if you want to change it or change the picture in it, then obviously you've got to somehow prise it away from the wall rather than dehang it. So I would never, to be honest with you, think about gluing something like this to my wall, I'd always hang it so I could take it off and do something with it in the future. Anyway, let's try to replicate what they've got on the back of the instructions here. And ironically, it tells me I've got 4 clicks left. So that £9 went pretty quickly. So the pressure is on. Ooh, that's like half a dose. I wonder if that's because it's running out. Nope. So that's one thing I can definitely confirm. The little counter here that said I had 4 clicks left. Basically, I only had 4 clicks left. It's a bit of a waste though. A lot of plastic in this for such a small amount of glue. Really, I mean, although it looks like a big tube, the amount of glue that's come out is not very much. So once again, I just had to use a little bit of masking tape because I could feel that starting to drop down. Now I suppose I could stand here for 5 minutes and hold it in the right position. In fact, it's still dropping, but I don't really want to do that. So now I'm going to leave all of these for either 24 or 48 hours and come back to them and see how they've stuck. So this is now 48 hours later. All of these have had 2 days to cure. So let's see how they've done, starting with my very dirty mirror. And I was just having a quick look at this and it's absolutely stuck on like nobody's business. In fact, what I'm going to have to do, I think, is end up breaking the mirror just to get it off. I mean, there's no way that's moving anywhere. I think I'm going to have to get a saw or some sort of thin cord or something behind and maybe cut through that glue. So that has fixed really well and that didn't need any support at all. So that's done very well indeed. And if we just take these supports off of my picture here, I can already tell that that's pretty solid. I can't actually... Oy, there we go. That's actually broken some of the frame there. Well, that's interesting. The glue hasn't failed between the frame and the wall. It's actually taken off the first or the few layers of paint. The plaster is still there. It's actually taken off the paint. So the paint is now stuck to my frame. Hasn't damaged the plaster. Same as the others here. That's really interesting that the paint has actually debonded from the plaster rather than the glue failing. So the glue is stronger than the adhesion between the paint and the plaster. The one thing I can see with all of these items is that you do get quite a lot of squeeze out around the outside. So if you're putting these on seriously, you would really want to make sure that that was taken care of, because that's a little bit ugly in there. That's better off being taken off before it goes hard. Just like the picture frame, that's pretty well stuck on. Oh, I think I'm going to end up cutting that off as well. So that's quite impressive, and it's got an incredible grip. I must admit, far more than I thought. That's not going to come down very quickly. Right, let's move on. The coat and hat stand. Oh, there we go. But this time, rather than the paint coming away, it actually took off the first layer of plaster that's sitting on the plasterboard. You can actually see the plasterboard underneath. And unless you're going to drill in here and actually hit a stud behind, which would be very, very strong, then I would say that maybe that glue would be easily stronger than just popping some fixings into plasterboard, which will generally pull out very quickly. And lastly, that plastic box that I tried to stick to the tiles, you may notice it's not actually on the wall. The 2 blobs of glue are left, and I heard this fall off maybe an hour to 2 hours after I put it on, and I thought it hadn't adhered to the back. But then I had another look, and what it looks like to me is that although I stuck it there, it gradually sank down to this position. This is why you can see this half moon here. Got to this point, and then it just fell off, which really demonstrates actually that for heavier items and items like this, they really need to be supported and held in place by something other than just the glue, while the glue dries and cures, and then they'll be okay, a bit like this. This isn't going anywhere at all. Right, let's have a look at our very last item, which was that hanging wall basket onto brickwork. So that's a bit of a shame. It fell off before I even had a chance to get any flowers in there. And it looks like glue just hasn't bonded properly with the plastic on the back. It's actually pretty easy to pull off, to be honest with you. Yeah, so that's not bonding properly with that brickwork. And I didn't even end up loading this properly. I didn't put the plant in. And when I watered it, it would be a lot heavier than it is now. So I don't think I would suggest that for brickwork. Let's go back inside for some conclusions. So as a conclusion, I would say, how well does the glue work? And I would give that 7 out of 10. It's got its limitations. You can't use it everywhere. But when it does stick, I think it sticks incredibly well. And it's still got a little bit of movement in it, which means it won't get brittle and suddenly fall off the wall on you. Number 2, ease of use. And I would give this a 4 out of 10 because the one thing it didn't seem to explain very well in the instructions or implied in the pictures is you do need to support the piece while the glue is going off. And I think, having used it now, I would suggest you support anything for the first day at least. And lastly, value for money. And I'm afraid I would only give it 2 out of 10, simply because you don't get many splodges of glue out the thing, and it cost me £9, which is £1 more than a great big tube of exactly the same type of glue. In fact, it's 15 times more than you get in one of these. There's something you can put in your skeleton gun and you can get a nice bead of glue all the way around the picture frame if that's the sort of thing you want to hang on your wall. So at the end of the day, I think the actual piece of plastic and that is a bit of a gimmick, and you're paying for it as well. As I said at the beginning, there's not much glue in here. So if you've got more than 1 or 2 things to fix, using this click and fix system is an expensive way of doing it relative to buying a big tube and using a skeleton gun. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you've got any tools or products or anything to do with DIY that you can't believe does what it says on the tin, please let me know. I will put it through its paces and ask the question, does it work? I will see you next time.